All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Michael Sky. I am here with Hans Komain. We are co-hosting the live portion of the Calling All Men Summit. Um, as I've talked to more and more men here, Hans, there's a lot of energy and excitement and visions about, hey, what if we do another one, bigger, better, badder next year? I've not decided on that yet, but I'm sure having a lot of fun meeting great men. We've got a great man we're about to talk to. Um, Before I introduce him, let me just remind everyone that if you're catching us for the first time, if you're finding us online on a stream, um, and you want to get the whole experience, go to callingallmensummit.com and just put in your name and email. And then every day we got a new theme, about 7 or 8 new speakers that day. And then over here on our Facebook page, we have about 3 to 4 great men that we're talking to on a live stream each day. If you come join the live stream, you can interact with us, post your comments. And if you're watching this on my YouTube, Hans YouTube, or some other page other than our Calling All Men Summit Facebook page, come to the Facebook page, give it a like so you get the notifications for the next ones when we go live. And that way, when you comment from our live Facebook page, we'll actually see your name and your image, and we'll be able to connect with you more. All right. And Hans is going to put a link in the comments there for folks to go over to the website, find their way to the website. Yes. All right. So we are talking about legacy in this hour. We're talking about legacy, live with purpose, find fulfillment, and be remembered. Our next guest, oops, I lost the button. Okay, here we go. No. What just happened? What just happened?
It's all falling apart. We were doing so well, Michael.
No. Okay, here we go.
Purpose in all flow. Just let it flow.
Our next guest ran Dream Connections from 2011 to 2022, with which he introduced men from 26 countries to women in Ukraine, Thailand, and Colombia. In that time, he helped create over 450 marriages, with 95% still being married after 12 years in business. They're just not married to the same woman. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Today, he's supporting the orphans in Ukraine through his nonprofit, Abundance International, and looking forward to the worldwide release of his upcoming book, Legacy, Live with Purpose, Find Fulfillment, Be Remembered, which launches April 9th, 2024. Marcum Davis, welcome to Calling All Men.
Gentlemen, what an honor, what a privilege, and the joy to connect with you brothers from across 3 different continents were represented here. And it was funny, Hans, we mentioned before we went live, I just looked at that little frame you have and I said, you're in Medellin, aren't you? And you're like, how did you know? And I'm like, I've been there so many times, and there's a vibe to it, and I know it well. And Michael, you're overseas, and of course, I've lived in Mexico. I lived in Ukraine. There it is. Love that. There was no doubt. It was kind of like you name that tune. You know, when they just play one note and you get it. It's like I just saw the sliver out of your window, and I'm like, got it. Know where he's at. It's not a problem.
Name that tune. Wow, that's a long ago. That's a callback to many moons ago.
Well, and I am the elder here on the call, although our hair fashion seems to be the trend, which
I'm probably quite close to you. I'm not sure, but
I'm 60. I just turned 60 this year. I'll be 61 in March. So
okay, yeah, you look young. You are the elder.
I want to let me start. I really want to just be in presence and just feed what I'm really feeling a calling for men is right now today, and what you're doing and what I can offer, and my life purpose, even though I did men's work for many years, and I have other credentials from my experience. I'm a certified No My Mr. Nice Guy coach, longtime friend of Dr. Robert Glover, beloved friend of your previous guest, Brian Begine. You know, there's few people in the world you say in your circle, you should always have at least one or two where you just open, you can share anything and you're loved. And he and I've couch surfed with him in Bucharest and Bozeman, LA, Istanbul, we spoke together, Miami, we spoke together, but we just really, I don't think we can go a couple of days without talking, and Glover's another one of those. So to me, this is part of what I'm going to talk about today in our legacy. Even after I've been doing men's work for a long time, there was a moment probably 6-7 years ago where I just woke up in the morning and my life purpose came together in a statement that just woke me out of bed. And it just came out so smoothly. My life's purpose is to bring men's hearts to life and inspire greatness in others. So my prayer and wish and ambition is that would come out from me and you guys would experience that just in the little time we have together. I want to start with a story, and we're going to dive right into whatever topics you guys want to go into. This was on April 22nd of 2022, about 18 months ago. As we said in the intro, I've been doing my international dating business and living in Ukraine for most of the past decade. And 5:30 in the morning, get woken up to the explosions that just rattled you out of sleep, the deafening, deep explosions, and rushing to the window to see if I could see what was there. And of course, the airport in Mykolaiv, where I'd been living, was bombed and destroyed, and you could see the smoke in the distance. Immediately, I went down and got dressed and hit the street. It's like, what's going to happen today? What is now going to happen? Because honestly, I've been living there and working there since 2011, even before the 2014 Revolution of Dignity. And we've been hearing rattling and political sabers from across the board. And it always just been that. It always been maneuvering for some political game. And we never really took it seriously. Even though I'd been warned, get out of the country, this time it's real. We really, honestly, most of the people living there on the streets, like myself, had really just thought it was more politics and the reality that this is actually happening and they're coming. And we all know the Russians are not kind to people they occupy. But I had a sense of destiny, and I'll explain that as we get into this concept about the formula for creating a legacy. I had a feeling that if I'm there, then there's a reason for it, if for such a moment as this. So I quickly grabbed my staff. We went down, and the streets were growing in pandemonium as people were now hitting the grocery stores, not knowing if there would ever be a restocking. If they were hitting the ATM machines to take whatever cash they could, the gas station lines were long, and within 3 or 4 days, all gas was sucked out of all the gas stations that was there. And our first instinct is, obviously my dating business is it's going to be done for a while. You know, there's no airports. The Russians are coming. Nobody's going to come to Dream Connections to come on a romance tour. So we had been working with my nonprofit, as you mentioned, Abundance International, and people can look at that at abundanceinternational.org and see the photos, all the work we're doing if you're just curious on the media work I was involved in. But we went to the local orphanage. We could right away just say, where are you guys at? What are your needs? And we showed up there, and they had 56 kids under 4 years old in this baby house orphanage. They were down to 5 days left of food supplies because they were supposed to, 2 days later, receive their entire month's shipment from a truck coming from Kherson, which is the first place that got attacked and occupied by the Russians. So we knew they weren't going to get any food. So we went out and we just hit the streets trying to get whatever we could in this long list to get these guys restocked for a month. And the stories of, in the face of actual crisis, actual emergency, you finally know what people are made of. Whatever is in you will actually come to the surface. You can hope in advance, when something happens, I'll really be there and I'll do all this kind of stuff. But to me, it wasn't just us and our team. It was everywhere. This is the stories that are never told. We go to the grocery store and the lines are like over an hour long. They go to the back of the building and people are, they say, hey, we're with the orphanage. They go, hey, look, please go in front of us. Go to the front of the line. The store manager would say, let me help you get what you need. We went to the scariest moment was for us. We had to go find some pharmaceuticals. A lot of these kids are special needs. We had to go get things that they need more than just aspirin. Okay. We went to the hospital and said, hey, here's what we need. While we were there, the Ukrainian military was there for some reason. I don't know why. And they approached us like, who are these guys? And when the nurses told them they're with the orphanage, guys, they gave us 200 pounds of potatoes from their own food rations. When the gas stations were out of gas, we found somebody who knew the owner of the chain, and he went and had somebody come from home to open it to give the reserves just for our vehicles and for the children's hospital. And so to me, when I look at this, it's like, you want to find out what you're really made of. You know, there is a point when it'll come to the surface, but there's also a different shift that has to happen in you that creates a character. That's the kind of person you are. You know, I could not imagine myself, and I was warned months ahead of time this was actually going to happen. And although I didn't believe it, I had to say, okay, let's play this out if this really does happen. And I said, I'm not coming home. And they're like, why? And I go, I got 20 employees. I got family. I can't see myself sitting on a couch at home in the comfort of my living room watching on TV while the people I love are having to endure this. You know, second of all, I want to look back a year from now and feel like I'm proud of whatever I did in this moment. And third, I wanted to believe that if I'm there, then there's a reason for me being there, such a time as this. So if you don't mind me transitioning, I want to get into what the focus is of the concept of why this book Legacy came about from all of this, and share a quick story. There was a friend of mine named Rick Butts. Rick was, at the time I met him, he's a motivational speaker. He was on the part of the National Speakers Association, right? And he had, in his story, he had gone from being an insurance salesman where he was just working long hours. And a lot of you guys, you work for big companies, you know, they just drain you, right? They're just going to take everything they can out of your life and make you feel guilty for not doing more. And you come home exhausted. And he was a single dad, had this teenage little 14-year-old daughter. And he was like, as a single dad, was just felt like, he says, I'm only giving her the leftovers. This is honestly, this is the norm. Guys are just being drained. They're being worked to death. They're being driven by other people's agendas. And in his heart, he goes, I don't know how to break out of this. I have to do something else. They paid him just enough that it wasn't easy for him just to break free and try to go get some other job or drop it all to go do his side hustle. You know, out of frustration, he said, I got to write a book. I'm at least going to write a book. So he wrote this book. It took him a couple of years because he only could fit it in slivers when he had a break. And it was called the Safari Chronicles, a little bit of an adventure book that had a little bit of personal development stuff mixed into the storyline. And he just felt so good getting it out. You know, and it succeeded, but not the way most books succeeded. It ended up getting picked up by a college professor who taught literature. For whatever reason, she liked it. And she asked him to come in to speak to her class and encouraged the class was going to read it. And then he was going to speak on it. And they were going to pay him $2,000. And he was like, excuse me? You know, how do I go about, getting a paycheck for talking about a book I wrote? I mean, and so he did it, and he just prepared for it. He just put his heart into it, and it worked. And not only did it work, he got referred to a couple others. He got 2 other gigs. So he made it his science and profession. How can I get enough of these paid speaking gigs at these colleges that I could replace my income? Within 1 year, he had more than created enough money to replace his job, quit his job, and then really went after pursuing a full-time professional speaking career, became part of the National Speakers Bureau, developed a corporate speaking thing, and absolutely changed his life tremendously. However, he became a victim of his own success. Within a few years, he was making $300,000 a year, but he was never home again. So now he was self-sabotaging the very thing he wanted to create. So he created a way, something he called the speaker machine. And it's a way to teach other people how to do what he did, how to take your passion, your message, make it into a speaking business for a career. And he was able to stay at home and just do what these guys love. You know, you have video calls, you had training sessions, and now he was home with his daughter. And I talked to his daughter, Rachel, and she says, I remember those days. It's like Dad had the high school on speed dial, you know, just saying, she's not coming in today. And we were going skiing. You know, he lived in Colorado. When I met him, he had this idea. He'd seen what I wrote a book on international dating, and he'd seen a couple of videos I put out. And really, I had no agenda with any of it, except that I just got tired of people thinking that international relationships were all bogus, a bunch of guys trying to bang a bunch of chicks and all this stuff. And I'm going, if you get past into the real culture where people actually live, like the real people actually live in Medellin, right? People actually live in these cities. They're wonderful people. They want the same things you do, and the cultural values seem to align. So I wrote a good book on it. And he says, I want to create a documentary, and you have to be the host because I love your heart. You're really sincerely passionate about this. Okay. Well, he ended up setting up Dream Connections with me. He called it European Dream Connections. He created the website, and we did these weekly webinars, online Zoom calls. We started, and I continued it for 12 years. And we got 4 guys to go. And so the hard part was at that time, he ended up developing cancer in his glands, his lymph nodes, and he had to go through some radical surgery. So here, this thing that was his idea, I got thrown to go do this on my own. I was like, wait, but this wasn't even my idea. What are you doing? And I fell in love with it. It was so heartwarming. The system we created, the way it was happening, really proving that sincere people could meet between countries. And I fell in love with it. And so together we built this business. And after a couple of years, we'd had over 100 marriages, and he found his wife, and he had settled into Spokane, bought some ranch property like a good cowboy, and for his new wife. And then he asked me to come on the speaker machine, and he wanted to tell the guys about how he could create this kind of system for them. And he says, I want to tell you about Marcum. He says, I'm telling you, he is part of my legacy. Because of him, there are hundreds of people who are happily married, babies born, and now this is part of my legacy too. 2 days after that, he called me and he said, Mark, you got to understand, I'm going in for some radiation treatment. He says, I don't know if it's the cancer's back, but I've got these things growing on my spine, and they got to go in for radiation treatment. And 2 days later, an infection flooded his body, and he was too weak to overcome it. And the day he was supposed to receive the treatment, he passed away. And it broke my heart because I loved him so much, and we'd become such dear friends. And in his memorial service, as people came on the Zoom call to chime in, I had no idea the scope of reach he'd had, the number of people that loved him, the way he had helped other people find their thing in life, their passion, their gift, their voice, that they had been able to leave their jobs and pursue things, have more time for their family. The other books he'd written, obviously the business he built, he had this ranch, and just the beauty he was as a human being, a giving person, just a joy to be around. He was one of those robust personalities where you just loved to be around him. And then his daughter came in at the end, and just we all cried, and it just touched us so much how he built such a relationship with her. And as I got off that call, I just sat there going, he did it. He really created a legacy from being an insurance sales guy. And I was just so deeply, profoundly affected by this. I said, I'd always thought legacies for the rich, the famous, the inventors, and I saw it right in front of my eyes, somebody who did it so beautifully. And I said, but how can I do this for myself? My little business was growing. I was enjoying that, but I wanted a formula. I said, what can we do to formulate this? So I can say, all right, this is how you build a legacy, and how I could teach other guys how they could put their legacies together. And I started looking at people I thought had great legacies. And for whatever reason, the first name came to mind was Morgan Freeman, right? And okay, well, what would I say about Morgan Freeman? He's got this voice, and I love some of the movies he's done that characters he's portrayed have impacted me. Okay, that's great. How do I apply that to me? How do I come up with a legacy formula? I don't know. I thought about other famous people. I thought about other memorial services. You have Michael Jackson or Lady Diana, or were there some clues in there? And I wasn't seeing something where I could say this is how anybody could create a legacy. And then in one of those moments, I just felt the quiet voice of God said, go back through those memorial services and look for a pattern. Okay. And sure enough, as I went back through Rick's, I went through one, and my second wife passed away. Haven't shared that story. And I started looking, and I saw the pattern. Each of them, that there was somebody that would talk on one of these 5 areas. They talk about obviously the people, relationships. Whether they're dear friends, their daughters or cousins, but they're the people who ended up bonding and having that relationship, with them. It was the experiences they shared. Maybe they went and did something crazy. You guys have had crazy experiences with brotherhood, and that it bonds you to that person, right? And they're the assets they built. Some people talk about what they left as an inheritance, part of their legacy, things they created, whether it was a book or whether it was music, that was passed on. And I think of creative things as things that you can do that you can share, so people you may never meet will actually get to enjoy the creation you made. And then expressions of kindness, just some kindness you did that touched somebody at the right time that they'll talk about. Because I came up with the definition that a legacy is what other people are going to say about you and how you benefited their life. It's not what they say to your face, because everybody has like some kind of an agenda. If they're going to tell you your face, they're either going to try to be nice to you or mean to you, but it's always got some agenda. But it's like, what do people, when you're not in the room, what would they say about you that says how this person benefited my life? And then I was trying to think, okay, now how do I make a formula of that? And then it dawned on me, you know what? If somebody were to intentionally, as part of just their daily routine, decide, what if I invest a little bit every day or frequently in the area of the people in my life, planning and making sure I'm having experiences, shared experiences with people, that I'm working on creating assets that can be passed on to my heirs and the people I love, or for the causes I want. What creative things are coming out of me? What am I working on? Whether it's an architect designing a building, or building a business, or a book or art or what music, what are the creative expressions that are coming out of my soul that have been given to just me? And then what expressions of kindness am I finding a way to do? And if I'm just consciously aware of touching on these areas, would that create a legacy? And I came to the conclusion it really would. It would create something where in all those areas, people would talk about how you favorably touched their lives. And as I went back through this, what really blew me away is I realized the acronym, you have people, experiences, assets, creations, and expressions of kindness. It spells peace. And I was like, oh, okay, game on. We're on to it now. We're on to it. So I got a good editor with me, and we spent 8 months writing this book to really deliver something that for the first time anywhere I've been able to find, we have an actual system of formula. We can actually help anybody create a real legacy that's going to touch people's lives. And I think about each of these areas for myself. And I want to share this with you because you need examples. People need to see pictures. What does these mean, right? So people, I'll go back to the very first things I said. I look at Brian Bajan, right? This guy's just my brother. We have just connected on so many levels. It's one of those people he's one of those soul people in my life. We just tell each other everything openly, and there's no judgment, no hidden agenda. Dr. Robert Glover, I've lived down in Mexico. I'm family to them. I appreciate them. And then, of course, you have people like your family, your kids. And my kids have been through hard things in their own lives, some of it their own doing, some of them the fact that, one case, one of their mothers passed away, another one, the first, wife left for another relationship, and how that destroys. But, they've come back together, and I love spending time with them as much as I can and admire what they've gone through. So people and then of course you think about just people you've worked with. I got to work with John Snoddy, who is now, or at least until last year, the senior vice president of theme parks for Disney. And we got to work on a project that Steven Spielberg was involved in. It was just creative joy and energy. You just go, oh my gosh, this is cool. Experiences. Now, you two brothers, you guys are a different part of the world, right? You can talk about experiences. This is the stuff where at the time, maybe you don't even realize how cool it is till later, right? Like I said, I got to work on a Spielberg project with this guy and this team of people, when I was like 35 years old. And as a joke in a boardroom one time, they're going through their phones going, okay, who do you have? He says, okay, yeah, I've got Spielberg's email as an AOL account. How about you? What's your number? And then they go through these people they know back and forth. You just listen to this as a kid going, wow, this is cool. And then to start traveling and to go fishing on the Amazon River, with a bunch of guys where they're fishing for peacock bass. And now you play poker in the lodge, right? And I played, I don't know if you guys are poker players, but I took my game when I was living in Vegas to the World Series of Poker. And I was just a home player. I was just curious. The fun part is when you're relaxed and you don't care, you do really well, right? I beat out at the World Series of Poker, not the main event, but this one that had 22,000 players registered. I came in number 200. I literally came in the top 1% out of 40 hours of poker. But it was so cool. I don't care. I'm not there to do it for a living. My jackpot was under 10 grand, but it's like, what a story, just to. And here's what I know about experiences. Growing up as a pastor's kid, my parents would always have guests over on Sundays. And this is in the 70s. So the 70s was my decade. From when I was 7 years old to 17, right, was the 70s. And I remember these guests come over. And so we had all the people from World War II and the 50s coming in, telling their stories about either their war stories or what happened to them in the happy days of the 50s. I remember as a 14-year-old kid thinking to myself, have they done nothing in 20 years? All I'm hearing about is stuff from the 50s. And I thought to myself, I want to make sure that my things that I have that are story worthy are no more than 6 months old or a year at the max. So I put it in my mind to make experiences a priority, and it was funny because it ended up not happening for me. I became very domestic, and I went all the way to 40 years old with just white minivans, never been out of the country, did nothing, struggling to scrape by, right? And then my second wife passed away. I just went into this depression, but I got good counsel on it. When I came out the other side, it was just such a relief. I felt like I'd been given a second chance at life. And I was just determined, I'm going to live. I am going to live. So almost all of my experiences came after the depression. And, at 42, I did that Amazon fishing trip, and I just became yes man, like Jim Carrey, right? I just go, let's do it. Whatever you got, I'm in. Let's go. And so to me, I've always thought to myself, if I'm not doing something every couple of months, I get an itch. I got to at least go see somebody, even if it's fly to the next town. I got to do something, right? So I have all these different things that I'm always looking at doing, but I also make sure I'm always doing it with somebody. Because the coolest thing, and the thing I loved about Dream Connections, was we were doing 5 tours a year. We'd have 20 guys come, and every guy had a romance coach. And then I had management staff. And then, we would do these things. We'd have 60 people in these events 4 or 5 times a year in Ukraine, right? And we're just like, and it was always crazy. And there were stupid stories that happen every time. And it was the stuff of life. And honestly, because I made that a priority, it was easier for me when the war started to say, all right, game on, another adventure, man. Let's go see what we do. And I spent 8 months in the country driving everywhere to go see what we could do for these orphanages that were now calling us, making your shipment arrangements for their food and supplies. And sometimes we just knock on a door. Do you guys need something? And out of that, things happened that I didn't ask for or anticipate, but we ended up getting on BBC, CNN, all the Fox shows, MSNBC. The Las Vegas Knights made me the person of the game ceremony thing for one of their games, and it's like, I didn't ask for any of that, but it was just, it's built into the value system. So I think when you come to this place where you make people experiences, your assets, creations. And the thing I love, assets are a whole nother category. And I can't say I'm an authority on it. I don't have training specifically in finance. I built 4 different businesses to 7 figures, and I've been bankrupt twice. You know what I mean? So it's like, but it seems like every millionaire has made it all and lost it all. Currently I'm driving a Jaguar F-Type R. I love dearly, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment near my kids after coming back from Ukraine. I don't care. That stuff's not important. I love it. I'll build more assets, But the thing for me that I wish for all guys is they would just come alive. Come alive. Just life is there. All of these things I've done, those opportunities were always there for the 20 years of my adult life prior to 40. It wasn't that they weren't there. I was just like, no. It sounds expensive. I'm busy right now. I got work. I got these kids. What am I going to do, right? Well, listen, I had an 8-year-old. I was a single dad with an 8-year-old son during the time I was doing all that crazy stuff. I found people, parents, other people to watch the kid. I lived. And out of that, I became this fountain of energy, creativity, and attracted people to me. Because listen, I'm telling you, don't ask what the world needs. You come on fire, because what the world needs is more men who are on fire. That's what the world needs. You want to know what the world needs? It needs you to find out what turns you on into this incredible ball of energy. Says, I love life. Man, I'm telling you, and I've said this as a men's coach for over 10 years, the man who will learn to say, I love my life, he finds his purpose, and everything comes together. Everything comes together. The question is, and you need to write this down right now. If there's no other notes you take on this entire talk, write this down. What will it take for me to say, I love my life? When you can do that, and it almost becomes a Tourette's, like you just find yourself doing, go, I love my life. You know what? I love my life. I love my life, right? I'm sitting in freaking Medellin, Colombia. I love my life. I'm in Africa, a beautiful woman. I love in my life, right? I am open and wanting to live. And the old saying, it's not about the years in your life, it's about the life in your years. And so to me, if you have a quest, if you have a burning desire, if you're feeling frustrated, you feel tired, you feel lost, you don't know what's going to work, start with this question. What will it take for me to say, I love my life? And you're going to have to go through, and I learned this from Dr. Glover, this exercise of saying, find out what your cups are. You have a cup for social need. You have a cup for your mental growth or learning or stretching. You have a cup for creative expression. You have a cup for adventure. You have a cup for romance. You have all these different things that your career ambitions. At each of those, if you're nurturing those and building them up, you feel the sense of I love my life. Then taking it a step further, take the legacy formula and say, hey, what am I doing for building relationships with people in my life, for experiences? What am I doing to create assets? And assets are basically the funding for dreams, right? So it's like, what am I doing to fund my dreams? Even if it's to leave something behind or not. What creative things were given to me to do that I should at least start working on? Playing guitar. I love this. I'm going to get back into it. I've been playing all my life. So I'm all for getting back into taking more lessons. I'm a 60-year-old guy. I'm going to be in a rock band, here in the near future, just because I love this stuff, man. It's just creative expressions. The book was such a project, but a birthing from my soul. Help me clarify all these thoughts I'm giving to you. What is your creative expression? You are made in the image of your creator. So what is he given you to create? There's a birthing out of you waiting to happen. And I said, it doesn't just have to be artistic, a book, a music, stage productions, acting, it could be an architecture designing a building. It could be an entrepreneur building a business that can create and bless others. But I really truly believe this, at the heart core of every one of our ambition, human desires, is to have a deep spiritual experience in what we do and a way to benefit others. And even if you're taking a company public, there's something about it that is deeply spiritual, that reaches to our soul, that says, I was born for this. And guys, this is what I just wish for you more than anything else. If I can give you clarity, if I can give you hope, if I can give you vision, is come to that place where you're just saying, the greatest thing I can do for mankind, for anybody else, is come to that place where I can say, I love my life, where I can experience myself coming fully alive, and what I'm doing will be to the benefit of other people. Call it a day. Now, what I'm saying in terms of legacy is how people are going to remember you, doing that formula. Contribute little bits every day to those areas. And over time, the accumulation grows, where there will be people say, because I hung out with Michael, because I hung out with, I had this experience. He did this kind thing for me. As a person, he reached out and called me and talked to me. And to you, when somebody's down, to reach out and just, there you go. At least everyone must choose himself. Choosing for himself, chooses for all men. There you go. All right, Hans. Excellent. Add to the dialogue. And so to me, that's been my journey. So right here today, at 60 years old, going on 61 in March, and all the things I've been able to do in my life, all the places I've traveled, the people I've touched, the years I had of my calling, World Series of Poker, the crazy adventures I've had. The one thing I could just say is I lived. And I lived. I have no idea where it's all going in the future. I don't care. I will live. It'll come to me. Financially up, financially down, probably. And that's okay. I don't anchor myself in that. The last piece that I'm not going to go heavy on is just the spiritual connection. All of us are body, mind, and spirit, and we take very little account to what we do to nurture our spirit. And that's where deep wisdom comes from, creativity comes from, deep commitment with other people, and of course, connection to the highest source of all things that are and ever will be. And I've learned that in meditation, when you quiet yourself, you're able to listen to him better. You understand that you're deeply loved. You understand that you're eternally good. And then all of a sudden you can relax a little bit. It's not all up to you. You don't have to worry about whether, it goes up or down. You're already good for all eternity. It's just a matter of enjoying the ride you're given today and appreciating it. The angels weren't even given bodies to walk around and touch and enjoy this world of creation. And we were. We have these years here. And later we'll talk about an eternity. But it lightens your load a little bit to think like, I am cared for. I have got an eternal plan. I can simply enjoy what's been given to me and take every project I have as an opportunity to share with my creator, like Papa coming down to play with his kids in a Lego set. Let's do this together. Let's go experience life. Let's experience this project, and to believe that you're cared for and loved. So there you go. I got you down to 35 minutes of everything that was on my heart to share. And I just wanted to give you what was coming from Spirit. So I'll now turn it back over to you guys to see where you want to take this mess.
It's quite the introduction.
Dumping through.
Yeah. Maybe Hans has a question. I was going to ask about your start in life.
Sure.
There are a lot of men out there today, don't have fathers, don't really have family, community, tradition, missing a lot of foundational things that a lot of men forever have had. What was your beginning like? What was your introduction into manhood?
I'm going to be very vulnerable with you and share with you that a specific answer to that question without dodging it, because it's not a pretty answer, but it's different than any you would think. As a pastor's kid, my dad tried to create the perfect family environment, and he really did. But again, if you understand the dynamics of that, it was all people pleasing. It's all, he had to look good to the church. He had to look good to the community. He had to do things so his family would look good to others. And so somehow I adopted that nice guy syndrome deeply, that our existence depends on other people liking us and our appearance and our behavior. And some of that comes in, not as much in the churches I grew up in. Some guys grew up in a church where they just bomb the guilt shit out of you and you just feel like slime all the time. I didn't quite have that, but I definitely felt like we had to always look good, be good. And my dad has been very candid to me to tell me too, he's probably been too much on that nice guy side. And he told me, he says, I hope you can find a way to stand up on your own better than I did. And when I went to college, I'd also been very judgmental about my goodiness. I hadn't drinking any alcohol, done any drugs. And so I go to college, I'm on my own, and I discover sex. I was like, oh my God, what is this? Well, here I was 18 years old. I'd only been away from home. I think it was in my third month of college, and I got her pregnant. So now I got to drop out of school, start a family, and make the best of it. And you can imagine I destroyed my dad's world and his reputation. And I was basically cut off and said, well, you had your chance at life, kid. Good luck, And you cannot imagine. I mean, it's almost like the baby eagle being kicked out before and his wings clipped. You're just going to hit the dirt and you're going to be left alone. Nobody's going to come pick you up, right? And of course, being an optimist by nature, I'm going, all right, let's pick this up and make this work. And I spent several months just laying around with this woman I did love, and we just spent time going for walks and doing anything, not realizing the little pile of savings that she had was going to dwindle. And so then I had to go find work. And I walked into a store, said, I don't know. I didn't even know how to apply for a job. What do you guys need? And he says, I don't need anything, but I'll give you $25 if you'll go a little Instaprint shop, hand out our little branded notepads and pens to the businesses in the neighborhoods. I spent 3 hours out doing that, came back, and he goes, you're hired. I said, why? He goes, I got 8 orders in the 3 hours while you were gone. So that was my world to start into sales. And by the time I was 25, I was producing more income. Actually, probably earlier than that, probably 23. I was making more money than my dad did, and that was one of those "f you," right, kind of moments. Like, I can succeed, I can do well in life, and so but you feel the emotional baggage that comes with all of that, right? So, and then it gets worse at 27. My little wife, we have 3 kids at that point, been together 7.5, 8 years. She gets seduced into a lesbian relationship and basically leaves, and out of her own sense of guilt tries to make me the bad guy. So devastation. I mean, I was 11 months of my life, I was worthless to anybody. Fortunately, I had a kind boss who did love me and put and paid for therapy and told me to take 2-hour lunches, make sure I go to the gym, to come back from all that. So this is where, I get married then again about 3 years later to a lady who just was doting on me. And of course, the story you guys all hear is that within 6 months after starting, she puts on 50 pounds and the sex goes away. And what happened, right? Wait, what happened, right? And she was a bright young attorney. She'd just gotten her law degree, and she was sharp. And before the marriage, she was doing yoga 3 times a week. She ended up developing a schizophrenia. So here I am, a guy in my young 30s. I spent the next 7.5 years caretaking a mental patient until finally it got so bad, to send her to her parents, and she ended up passing away. So that's when I went into my depression at age 40, and I'm going like, what the hell happened? What happened? What kind of life was this? Are you effing kidding me? And so my coach and counselor at the time, Dr. Mike Phillips, who's also the beautiful man, a pastor of my church, he just says, you've gone through a life depression, which your body is saying, when you were young, you promised me it'd be all of these things, right? You're going to be an actor, you're going to be an astronaut. And now look, you got nothing. So he says, it's the death of a dream, and you have to let it finish its mourning cycle. And it was 8 months of suck. And I was always an optimistic person. And trust me, between all those horrific stories I just told you, I was always finding a way to get back up, to find optimism, to find ways to enjoy my life, to get back up. And this time it said, nope, you are effing done. And I love what Jim Carrey says. He goes, depression is your body saying, I need some deep rest. I need deep rest from this character you've been trying to create, these stories you've been trying to tell me what your life is going to be like. And none of it came true. You got my hopes up, right? And then you dashed all your dreams. Mm-hmm. And so that's to answer your question about my upbringing and shaping it. But it wasn't until after so if I can encourage anybody, it was after my depression, after age 42, I came to life and experienced everything. I've lived 8 lifetimes in the last 20 years. It's never.
What was that turning point? Maybe this was in your earlier recounting of your story, but from that depression, what had you kind of, take off on adventure?
Mm-hmm. When I recount the story, and I'd say it like this in the book as well, is, by the way, if you don't mind, I'll do a little drop right here. I'd love for you guys to go to marcumdavis.com and get on the early notification list when the book is out. Because I really, this is going to be something that if you've gotten anything from the last 45 minutes, this book is birthed out of something, out of spirit. And I'm just grateful for the life stories I was given. And I really want to see this book do well for other people's purposes. All the proceeds go to Abundance International. I get nothing from the author royalties. But I really do think this answers the call on thanks guys, on men's hearts. So when I went through the depression, and I could coach guys on depression now, because after I endured it, I had to become an expert on it for myself to survive, and of course I'm not a clinical psychologist, but there was a time when the cycle had been finished. Whatever was inside of me, the mourning process had been finally completed. And I describe it like a toaster, had been pushed down for 8 months. All of a sudden it just popped up. And I was, holy cow, I forgot what it felt like to be alive. I was free. And I had such joy and such energy. And I was like, oh, thank you, God. I swear, I just woke up one morning and it was just gone. And I said, I am going to live. I am not going to do that life again. I'm not going to just be the white minivan guy sacrificing everything for everybody else. I went out and bought myself, I think it might, if it wasn't that day, it was that week. I went out and got myself a little, it was 5 or 6 years old, but it was a Mercedes convertible, those little MLK, whatever those are. I forget what the initials are, but it was a little convertible two-door. And then I made a trip back to Santa Cruz where I'd lived for a while, and just on my own, and I bought a skateboard. What a crazy, stupid. I go, am I in midlife crisis? I don't know, but I just wanted to live. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to grab something. So then I went and started recording music. And I started having spiritual experiences that were very bizarre. So I woke up one morning and I hear I'm a single dad, and I have not dated since I was probably 28, and I'm 42. And I had this incredibly emotional love thing that I just woke up with, that I'm in love with this person, and it's a long distance relationship. I don't even know who it is, but it was so real and so tangible. It was designed to give me hope. God wanted to give me hope that I have a life. I will have romance again. So he gave me the full experience as if I'm right now in the middle of it, deeply in love, madly in love with this person. And I wrote music. I just got down on my guitar and I wrote this song called Even Apart, You're Here. Even Apart, You're Here. I wrote this music because this person was so real to me. And across the board, then the next thing, the company, again, they invited me to go on this fishing trip to the Amazon. I hadn't been out of the country since I was 18, and everybody told me, don't go there. Everything wants to kill you, especially don't go in the water. The little things crawl up your junk and you die, right? So, and of course, the first day on our fishing trip, they have us wade through one of the ponds to get to a fishing spot. And I'm cursing. I was like, freaking Joseph gets up my junk, I'm going to kill somebody. So I was like, but then it ended up just being this beautiful experience. And I'll never forget it. The little Brazilian guide they assigned to our boat, I told him, show me your village. I don't do fishing. I just want to experience everything. So we went up to the banks. If you've been on the Amazon River, they have these 50-foot high banks on one side of the river. And that's where all the villages are. So above the water level. And they built this little bench. And I brought some cigars with me. I handed one to him. And we sat there having a cigar. And I'm going like, I hadn't been out of my country. I was scared shitless. And I'm going, holy cow, I'm having a cigar sitting on a bench looking over the Amazon. This is beautiful. I go, what have I been doing all my life? Right? And it wasn't that much money.
What had brought you there in the first place? Why were you there?
Well, the company I was representing called Game Tech, I was their California distributor. And it was my first time into real money. I built that company to $5.5 million, and I was making bank. The board of directors recognized my accomplishment, and they want to invite me on the annual board of directors fishing trip. And I couldn't say, you can't say no. It's the board of directors, the company you represent. So scared shitless or not, I'm going to the Amazon to go fishing, And so I went to REI to try to buy all this fishing gear, and I show up there dressed out like something out of a magazine. These guys are looking at me laughing. They just got blue jeans and t-shirts. What are you talking about? What are you doing? So that's what got me to the Amazon.
Wow. So then from there, did that give you like the bug of like, oh, I want to see more of the world. I want to find myself in more situations that I never imagined. And
well, let me transition to something you originally asked about, and we really wanted to talk about international dating. So I think this is a good time to transition into that. What got me started. And while I was on, I loved that experience so much. They wanted to do it again the next year. And of course, invited me to go again. Cause by that time I was just full of life. I was so in love with life. And it's contagious. They love my energy. So they go, you got to come next year, Mark. Okay, I'll come. At the end of the trip, there was a local guy, had been a retired Navy SEAL, who sort of was the one to greet us, get us on the boat and everything. And one of the guys there in the trip knew that, I'm basically been newly single, and I wasn't interested in dating. I was just like, I'm alive. Please, no, I'm just happy that I'm alive. You have no idea. And so he called the guy, goes, hey, a buddy of mine needs to meet some girls. So can you hook it up? So evidently we had some single guys there. And so they'd arranged all this. I didn't know this. So we're sitting after the fishing trip, we're back in Manaus and sitting around this cafe, the little cantina looking over the river, right? And we're in the little tables having our beers. And the guy goes, hey, would you guys like to meet some girls? And of course, the guys are, oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it had all been arranged. He winks over and winks at his buddy. The guy simply nods to the girls, and they all had been picking each us out who they're going to go sit next to. And so this little girl comes and sits on my lap. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't see this coming. And we had an extra day and a half there. So this girl made it her ambition to be my sightseeing guide, make sure I was happy. I love the country, make me happy in every other way she wanted to make me happy, that I could be happy. And at the end of it, though, it was beautiful. You know, it was calm. It was respectful. It was like I was the king, you know, and the man. There was such respect there around me as a man. And she had such feminine energy, and nothing was in a hurry, and everything was about trying to figure out what else I would need, like to do. She just wanted, you know, she wanted me to enjoy it. She wanted me to like, you know, the country. And so I came back home and said, what was that? What was that? So I went on this whole binge of dating. A buddy of mine, we just said, let's make a science out of this dating thing. So now I wanted to experience it. So we went on this thing where like I started crashing and burning at all my dates. And he goes, well, okay, well, quit going on second dates. Just get that out of your head. You're not going to date. Just do first dates. Let's do.
You were in America.
10 first dates. Back in America, let's just do 10 first dates and we'll learn from this process together. Okay, we'll learn from this process. And then right about then, one of my buddies from the trip invited me to go with him back to Rio de Janeiro. And there I fell in love. I was like, wow, this little girl named Danny, she was 23. She had a marketing degree, had worked for corporate McDonald's in Brazil. And then she went and created her own grocery store and was franchising herself. So she was back in the city to get supplies. We hit it up at one of these outdoor dance things. They have dance at every outdoor cafe. And oh my God, we spent a week together. It's like something out of a movie, right? And at the end of it, we were heartbroken because it's like, I wanted her to come. She's going like, I ain't leaving. You know, I got 2 grocery stores. I'm building a franchise here. I got a daughter. I got grandmas. And then I came back home and said, all right, I need to figure out how I can find that to wake up to every day for the rest of my life. And that's what put me on my quest to international dating, writing the book. And then Rick came in and we created a business how to help other people find the same.
Yeah, on my first trip to Brazil, I was invited there, and I gifted a workshop one evening to my friend who had invited me. And everyone who showed up, almost no one spoke English. And there was a woman from Manaus.
Oh yeah,
and she came up afterwards, and she shared with my host that she would love to show me Brazil. So before you know it, her and I were dating, and she was taking me around Brazil, and I had this custom guide, and she cooked every meal for me. She took such good care of me. And this one time we ended up, another guy who had attended my workshop had gifted me his beach house on the coast. So we were living in this beach house completely free, better than free, a gift. With this Brazilian woman from Manaus, very feminine, she's taking all this care of me. It's like I'm living in abundance with this feminine woman. The cost of living is zero in paradise. And I'm like, what? Didn't make any sense, And through my travels, I'm just convinced that if a lot of men who are suffering back in the States or somewhere in the Western world, anywhere really, if they just had a taste of some of the other options out there, the other ways of life that are possible.
Yes. Let me give you a story to support that. So when I came home from that trip, literally, I just came home from a week with the most delicate, tender, feminine, little soft package, big eyes, and I really wanted to marry this woman. But I was in such a good place because I was treated with such respect and nobility, guys. It's like, I came back with that saying, I just been fishing in the wrong fishing hole with the wrong bait all these years, right? The ones who really admired and wanted what I have were sitting somewhere else. And that was just my story. But here's the transition I made back coming to the States. So I come back with that place where my identity had changed. I shifted from this guy who's so hard to fight to find a date, where it's disposable, where I'm way too old, all this kind of stuff, right? And I'm coming back and I'm in the airport at the first landing in America. Then I had a jetway to get to my next flight. So we're walking down, those long tunnel things to the plane, right? You pass your ticket and you walk down the hallway. What do we call that? Jetway, a hallway? So there's a long line. These guys let too many in, so we're all standing there waiting in line. So behind me, I hear this voice, this little mousy guy. It sounded like George Costanza from Friends. Where was that? Seinfeld. Seinfeld. So George, I hear this little voice. Oh, that's a really nice purse. I'm just like, oh my God, I don't even want to turn around and look. This is embarrassing, right? And you hear this beautiful, softer, deeper, elegant woman's voice go, thank you very much. Some people today are sensitive about leather products, but I appreciate your comment. And he goes, oh, no, I like it a lot. I'm just dying. To save mankind and masculinity, I have to say something. So I turn around, and sure enough, it's just like I thought it would be. A little short, balding guy, poorly dressed, and this elegant woman, this long, New York type of a, wool coat, long black hair. She's probably 32, 34-ish. And I said to her, and I just looked her in the eye, at a cold. I mean, literally, I just turned around cold, and I said, it's not even as much that the purse is leather, but if you killed the animal yourself, that would probably be a problem to some people. And I was good with that, but she was like, game on. So she comes back and she goes, oh, actually, yeah, I did kill it myself. So I'm like, okay, then we're going this path, girl. So I go, well, that's great. Did you slit the throat or use the hammer to crush the skull? She goes, I used the hammer. I go, it takes a little longer, but it's effective. She goes, and I let my kids watch. I go, that's how kids will learn where things come from. You're a good mom. With that, I just turned around and faced frontward again. There was silence. All of a sudden, this noisy airport was just dead quiet, listening to this whole thing. And I'm sure she and I were both just like deeply inside going like, God, that was fucking hilarious. We're enjoying this thing, right? And afterwards, I met her again at baggage claim when I landed. And I said, I'm doing some men's stuff. And at the time, it was just men's groups at the church. I said, I really love to understand more about why that was so easy for us to be playful like that. She seemed sharp enough I could ask the question to. And she goes, well, because obviously, like you heard, I'm married and I got kids. And so I just don't think we had anything to gain or lose. We had no agenda in it. We could just enjoy the bantering. And I thought, secret. Big secret. Lose the agenda. Just enjoy people. And I later did a course called the Science and Fun of Flirting, where basically that's what I teach people is just have fun with people every day, everywhere. And when that right one comes along, it'll just be one more person you have fun with. So much energy into it. But I think that the secret for me came because I went overseas. I realized how much value I have just as I am, that I could bring that back with me. And go, if somebody wants to give me shit, that's their problem. I already know what I'm worth. 100%. So this is why I really would encourage guys to travel, see other countries, understand what you're worth around the world. Because even if you don't end up with a relationship with somebody over there, the energy you will bring back here to the States and attract the kind of woman who respects a guy who holds that energy. It's almost like the quick fix. Because your identity changes when you realize who you really are to the people who value and appreciate what you bring to the table.
100%. Yeah, a big part of your identity is carved out by how the people in whatever culture you're in see you, how they identify you. And it's common in America today to really look down on, men in general, white men, old white men, etc. Yeah. But the reality is around most of the world, Western men and our character and our work ethic and our honesty and these sorts of things are really noticed, really treasured. And I mean, that's just one of the many reasons there's a magnetism abroad. It's not that just, they all want your money. That's silly. Of course, money is attractive and there are women who are just after your money. But there's a lot of other reasons why Western men and women abroad make a great match. Wouldn't you say so, Hans?
It's a great match. And I like also, there's great matches out there. And I would argue that Western man and Western woman is not one of them. But nearly all the other ones are. Western man, African woman, great match.
Yeah.
Colombian
let me
woman,
give a word
great
of
match.
coaching on that. Because obviously I'm probably the world's foremost authority on international dating and marriage just by the fruit of my business with so many marriages. And we're focused on marriage, not casual dating. So to find an actual sincere relationship, you need to get to the people who are also sincere. And the problem is most guys use dating sites, which are all about casual daters. And so of course they're running into casual daters, which are all about give me a paycheck, buy my way, you owe me this. And it's horrible. You have to get behind it. And what we did with Dream Connections was we got relationships. So we never advertise for girls. You don't get good girls if you advertise. You find somebody, even if it's one to start with, and who has got a good heart, looking for the same thing that your guys are looking for, and ask them, hey, do you have any of your friends? And then their friends and their friends. And that's how you build it, because good girls know other good girls. So if you're going to go date overseas, you almost need to start off with somebody, who's already over there and says, hey, I know a good girl, right? And if you don't do that, you're going to end up frustrated, upset, thinking these bad stereotypes, and you'll give up on it, saying it's not true. They're all hooking. They're all just scammers or prostitutes. You guys want your money, and it's, well, you did it wrong.
Yes. There's so many things I would love to share, but it's fantastic that you've done this work, Marcum, and I 100% agree. I think, you take one trip into an African, a Kenyan disco, and it will change your body forever, and you'll be a better man for the women in your homeland also. But to your last point, I met the woman of my life in an unlikely place, Colombia, and I tell her now too, because she's such a great woman, I tell her who do you have friends and I want to introduce her friends, who are looking for something like that to Western friends of mine, and that's how it works, I think, because I know she's great. And so just, do you have friends? I'm asking her.
To tell you what, guys, if you guys want to do a deep dive into international marriage or long-term sincere relationships in the next hour or whatever, we could do that for sure. And because that's a whole different subject, but it needs to be done with the right respect that you guys understand we bring to the table. And one of the greatest griefs of my heart was I was the white hat in a very black world. When I was out there trying to create marriage, trying to connect sincere people, I was ruthlessly, consistently attacked online by people who never knew me, who didn't even know what my business really did, who just thought everything out there is mail order bride, human trafficking. And I fought that for 12 years. And it was my pride to stand up to them and say, I will show you it can be done. I will show you. And then I go to the most horrific stereotype places in the world, right? Ukraine, Thailand, where everybody says, oh, they're all girly boys. And I'm like, I just want to, let me show you. Let me show you what we can do. And we built such a beautiful thing there with really elegant business women. And then Medellin, where we went for 3 years. The only problem with Medellin we had, the girls are everything you said. They're so relaxed. They're so comfortable. They're happy. They're the most happy people in the world. They don't want to leave. So you got to decide, do I want to relocate there and just stay there?
Wow.
Because they really love it.
Yes, true.
Yeah,
Marcum,
Marcum, I think that would be. I think that'd be a great topic, and for another call, though, I can't do that this hour, but I love the topic. No, Hans and I are both passionate about it. I think it would make a great gift to the men as well. And maybe we could do that, I don't know, maybe right behind or when we're doing this this follow-up training that you're going to do for us.
Sure. Michael, sorry, I want to
let me just name the training. I'll let you get back to it. Morning Rituals of Legacy Makers. This is what Marcum said.
And the reason is because I want to be able to take you guys, and what the thing I'm frustrated with is so many of the topics we talk about are so high level that you could walk away and just go, oh, that was a nice idea. If we can't take it down to something that's going to make it tangible and actually deliverable, it's just a nice idea. And so for me, what I wanted to break it down was real life, what that would be. So the training I want to do is for that. I have a free daily planner template, which just integrates it all in there. I want to give to you guys for free. I got nothing to sell, but I'm passionate about men because I'm telling you, the other thing is, if you can't travel the world, the other way to make yourself fiercely attractive is to know where you're going and making your difference in life. And for every day you wake up going, I just love my life. You do that, you will attract the better, higher quality women. So to me, this is important. But guys, I love the topic. So I'm open to however you guys want to come back to it. But Thank you for allowing me to be here, serving men. And I really pray, like I said, my purpose is to bring men's hearts to life and inspire greatness. And I hope I achieved a little of that today.
Yeah, well, you're definitely alive, and on
Yes.
fire. And I can relate, and I think a lot of men can, to being maybe stuck in a rut in life. Just you take up responsibility and then more responsibility and more responsibility. And before you know it, maybe you're living someone else's life, or you don't even realize that you're not fully alive anymore. Maybe you never were, until you get a wake-up call that's maybe a depression or something else, or a taste of a feminine woman in a far-off land, and you're like, whoa. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for talking to us about legacy. And for those who choose to own the Calling All Men Summit, Marcum is one of the gentlemen, one of the mentors who's going to join us. And for a bonus training or two, we want to hear about how to do the morning rituals for legacy makers. And maybe we could also talk Marcum into telling us how to find that feminine beauty in a far off land. And I think his connection is frozen. Either that or he's just feeling deep inner peace.
Yes.
Yes. So thanks everyone for joining us. Hans, did you have a last?
I'll say it very shortly. No, the enthusiasm is infectious. It's beautiful. But I also want to honor Marcum for facing what he's been facing, especially the last part. Getting so much backlash and he stood for it. And I think there's a beautiful thing there, and he's been standing for it. I just wanted to honor him for it, because I understand what he's been facing in that part of his work, and I think it's fantastic.
Yes. Marcum, thanks for, standing up for men and, being a guide and being a brother, being an elder. We appreciate you being that for us here on Calling All Men.
Glad to have been here and contributed. And thanks for your patience while my router rebooted.
You were just frozen with this peaceful smile on your face.
Yes.
No, listen.
Super benign.
God knew me enough to say I need to disconnect him while they say nice things about him. He doesn't need to be inflated. So
Right.
You'll get to see the recording.
All right. I
All right.
serve and I love you, brothers. I love your cause. I support you. I'll rebroadcast this to my YouTube channel, and we all want the same thing, man. We want every guy to be able to say, I love my life, because in that he's going to find all the stuff he's looking for.
Amen.
All right, guys.
We'll be back top of
again.
the hour. We'll be back top of the hour with Mark Iron talking to us about waking up from, when your testosterone is dropped and you're maybe no longer alive.
And you lose your words.
Mark's good people. I love him.
All right.
Our awesome
All
brothers.
All right. Thank you,
guys.
Marcum.